Well, hey, I'm Rebekah Folks, happy homemaker, mom to 4 busy kids, and online entrepreneur. I've spent over a decade in this space working with high-achieving, high-performing women who carry the weight of juggling all the things. After many ups and downs of creating balance between home life, work life, and a million kid activities too, I learned how to slow down to actually accomplish more of the important things. I believe in all the to-doing, there are deep spaces in women's hearts that are sacred to us. Conviction in our identity, hospitality around our tables, and that quiet strength that only comes when we lay our head down at night, confident we're doing a good job where it matters most. Consider this a melting pot of wisdom learned over the years. From homemaking and wellness to influencing and marketing, we're diving into the topics that have created more peace, more joy, and in the end, more margin in my business and my life. Welcome to Wide Open Spaces. Well, welcome back. I am really thrilled about this topic today because it is just something that comes up again and again with women that I'm talking to, whether it's my mom and sisters or my best friends or people in my work and organization. And one of my friends was telling me the other day that she always thinks of August as kind of her new year, as her beginning of the year, just kind of a fresh start because kids are going back to school. It's kind of like you're, falling back into an old routine, or maybe you're establishing a new routine, but it just gives this way to create some newness. And I love that. And it seemed like a perfect time to talk about the topic of just how to do it all without dying. I feel like someone asks me every few days, I don't see how you do it all. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, I don't at all. And I don't know how you do it all. I don't know how any of us do it all because there's so much to do. And it actually, the last few days when I knew I was going to be on here and talking about kind of, I'm not going to say time management. John Maxwell says that you don't manage time. Time has been managing itself for millions of years, but maybe priority management and being able to kind of establish what's the most important to me. What am I going to zero in on so that I can actually see some progress? Because, well, I was thinking about this the last few days about, have you ever seen that movie Sully? And it came out a few years ago. It was about Captain Sullinger. It had Tom Hanks in it. And it was kind of the story of this pilot that he landed his plane. He was flying a commercial aircraft and it had a couple hundred people or so on it, full crew, passengers, the whole deal. They had some trouble on the flight and he ended up landing the plane in the Hudson River. Y'all remember the story. But what I was thinking about, and everybody was okay, like minor injuries, like everybody survived it was just really, really incredible kind of hero story. But then what was interesting is I don't remember who exactly it was that created the investigation on, like, did he have to land it in the river? Like, could he have saved the plane? Could he have done it differently? Maybe there was kind of an alternative path or, a field or something that he could have landed it at. And so there was this whole investigation into Captain Sullinger regarding, was that the best course of action? And what they ended up saying at the end was was there time to land the plane somewhere else? Yes, there was. Was there, a way to do it differently? Yeah, he could have done it differently. However, what they said they weren't putting into account was like the time for him to be a human, to actually take the information, to process it, to deal with the, feelings and emotions of what were going on, to calculate, is there even time for them to get to the place and to come back, all the different details that, we're not robots to be able to just, here's all the information that's in my brain. I'm going to just create an output, a response for it right now. And so he was found innocent or whatever of the investigation because he's a human. And what I was thinking about in regard to that was, if you were to think of everything that you coulda, shoulda, woulda be doing at all times, and you listed it all out and you put it all down, of all the things that you really needed to do, just kind of realistically, could you get them all done in a week or in a month at any time? Is there actually enough time in the day? And I would venture to say that for, the grand majority of us, the answer would be yes. Like, could you actually do all the things? Yes. But what it is not really taking into account is the time to be human, the time for you to kind of emotionally respond and think through and process different parts of your day, times to eat, times to sleep, times to rest, times to, have time to scroll social media or watch Netflix or to go to your kids' ball games or to go to church or to just have conversations leisurely with people in your life, whatever that looks like, to be human and to actually enjoy life. And so I was thinking about that with just time management and prioritizing and being able to kind of look at everything that we need to do. And I was kind of thinking back to several years ago. Gosh, I'm thinking it was actually like 6, 7 years ago. And Eli and I were at the lake, and that's kind of our weekend thing that we do for, May through November is we go up to our place at the lake, and that's just where we rest and reset and relax with our people. And I remember this was like, 6-ish years ago. And there's a little cafe there, and we were eating breakfast. And I looked at him and I said, I think I might have a brain tumor. And he said, you think you have a brain tumor? And I said, I do. I think I might have a brain tumor. I am having trouble with just like racing thoughts. I'm having trouble. Like, I'll be mid conversation and kind of forget what I was going to say. I'm having trouble focusing. I think something might be like wrong. And he kind of listened to me, and I asked me some questions, and then he goes, Rebekah, you do that. You do all those things. He said, do you know where you don't do that? And I said, no. And he said, you don't do that at the lake. And I went, oh. And at that time, we didn't have any cell phone service or anything at the lake. It was just, when you got there, it was 0 bars. I mean, there was no service, maybe like a couple little coves at the lake. You could get a bar or something, but really no cell service. He said, we get here and it takes you, he said, it can take you, about a day to kind of wind down. And he said, then you are totally at peace. You're like sitting outside, reading your book, you're drinking your coffee and just kind of leisurely moving around. He said, and you're just totally different. And it broke my heart. It totally broke my heart. And it made me want to make some changes, because I don't want to live like that. I don't want my people noticing a total difference in who I am and how I'm acting and thinking I have a brain tumor because I'm overthinking and over like working and just I'm just doing all these things. And am I really doing anything super well if I'm in that state? And so that really led me to kind of starting looking into productivity and priority management and classes and courses and books and all the things that I do if I want to start to learn to master a different area. And something that I realized about myself honestly, this was in the last few months, is that I really am someone I'm pretty confident. I'm confident. I don't really struggle with a lot of insecurities, and even like comparison is just not one of my biggest things. And it is, but in a different way. And so it's not that and maybe you can relate to this. It's not that I'm necessarily looking at any one person and going, oh, I think that person has it all together, or I wish my life looked just like hers, or I want to be her, anything like that. It's really not. Instead, what I do is I have created this like archetype composite person in my mind. And what I do is I take the best of the best, and I have created my own like super person, my own Proverbs 31, my own just kind of composite of all the things. And I see this mom over here that is really just prioritizing fitness and fasting and macros and, just like supermodel bod. And I'm thinking, okay, that's the standard of excellence. That's my standard. Okay. So then I come over here, and this other part of the composite is this person is raising her children in, the most precious spiritual environment, and she's homeschooling them, and they can all recite the book of Philippians, and they are just, the most precious little angel children that she is just praying over them every night, and with them, like just with them at all times, like the most spiritually doing all the right things there. Okay. So then I've got that part of the composite. And then over here, I've got people in my business they're this person over here, how she does social media, or how she develops leaders, or how she is just killing it in whatever area that I've deemed, the standard of excellence. And so they're all just in there. And so it's not even that it's like one person, it's the weight of all the people. It's the weight of all the shoulding. And let me tell you what that does is then I start to recognize some familiar feelings when I am getting myself in that shoulding category. I start to feel overwhelmed because who can do it all, right? I feel just the weight of that ever growing to-do list. I start to feel uncertain. Like, am I doing the right things? And that makes me kind of ineffective because I'm not totally bought into, is this even what I should be doing right now? Maybe I'm feeling guilty because I should be spending more time doing this or that, or pouring more into this, or seeing better results at this and that. Maybe I'm just feeling burned out. Maybe I'm just feeling stuck. Whatever it is, I start to feel all these different feelings because I'm shoulding myself to death. And that really kind of brought on some feelings for me, and me kind of starting to look into, how can I do this thing a little better? How can I do this thing better? Because what I'm doing is not working. I was noticing just more and more times of those feelings coming up, and feeling like I had a brain tumor, just because it was creating so much anxiety in me. Not that I was really fearful or nervous, but it was just too much on my plate, and not being able to really see progress in any one area, because I was just kind of toe dipping in all these different areas. And so I couldn't really get any traction. And so that was affecting my confidence muscle, because what really helps me to feel confident is knowing I've done this before, I can do it again. I say I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it. And so then I do it. So then again, I'm just kind of building up that confidence muscle, and because I trust myself to do the things. But when I wasn't seeing progress in any area, well, that was creating insecurity in me. And it wasn't because I wasn't capable. It was because I was doing too many things, and I am not a robot. I have a human side. I need to be able to categorize and prioritize different things at a time. And one of my just favorite verses that I've loved for years and years and years is in Proverbs 29. It says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." And one thing that you kind of have to do, that I definitely had to do, was just kind of lay out everything that was important to me. Just kind of, and this takes days sometimes, unless you're just like out on a solo retreat or something, but just kind of putting into account what's important to me, what needs to get done. And this could be things of all manner of life, right? Everything from different forms of wellness to things with your job, to things that need to get done within your home, things that maybe, getting your hair cut and color, whatever it is, just like all the things that you think are on your plate that need to get done. And you may start to see some themes within that. But a resource that I found, and I actually just found it at the beginning of this year. And again, I've taken many of productivity course and definitely read a ton of books and podcasts. And I think I've even taken a course. I did take a course on this. And this book was actually one of the very, very, very most helpful things that I've done. And I actually think you could even read like the first half. And that alone is so helpful. And it's called The 12-Week Year. Okay. The 12-week year. And what it allows you to do is to look at kind of 90-day cycles and to say, this is what I'm committed to for this season, this just kind of time. And it's not that when something comes along, you're saying, oh, I can't ever do that. It's just for this season, I'm saying yes to this. So I kind of have to say no to other things. Because anytime that you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so just kind of defining, where are my yeses right now, so that when other things come in that could threaten my yes, where I'm wanting to prioritize, where I'm wanting to see growth, what does that look like? So that I can be able to see progress there. I remember years ago, my mom telling me she would kind of decorate people's houses for extra money. This was when I was little, but I just remember her like being on the phone, or I was kind of just in the room when she had a conversation with someone. And I just remember it from probably being, 8 years old, which is scary to think what conversations have my children heard that they will, forever remember. But this was one. And she said, she was talking to someone that maybe she was going to help them decorate their house. And she said, they were talking about the budget. And she said, when you got this, this much money, what you want to do is use all of it in one space, instead of kind of, you've got $1,000 and you get a rug for the dining room, and you get new bedding or new bedspread in the bedroom, and you get a new lamp for your bathroom, and new just whatever it is, an armchair for the entry, whatever. Instead of it being all spread out, you really invest it all in one space, so that when you walk into it, it's like, oh my gosh, I totally see the difference here. And that's the same thing with focusing your time. You're going to focus it in on a few areas, so that you are getting the most bang for your buck, so you can actually see progress somewhere, so that there's a before and after to your time. So you're going to have to kind of identify your priorities. And for me, when I do this, there ends up being some themes. And so I've been doing this. I'm in my third 12-week year of 2023. And I've seen some progress, and I'm so grateful for this kind of, I've done this in different ways, but I just feel like the way that book kind of describes it is really, really helpful. I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to check it out. But I'll kind of have like a wellness category, right? And what I'm really prioritizing here is the output. It's not even necessarily I have these big goals. It's like, if I want to see success, what does success look like to me in this wellness category, where it's, for me, it's like taking my supplements and daily movement and my nutrition. And it's kind of looking at some different things. Yeah, my intermittent fasting. I'm like looking at my little calendar over here. So different things, and it's checking my output, instead of being so focused on like a metric on the scale. But instead, I'm able to look and see, am I being consistent here? Am I actually doing what I said I was going to do? And then at the end of the 12 weeks, I'm able to kind of track, was I not only, what's always works for my brain is when people kind of bring ideas and things like that, is it's like that Stephen Covey quote, you begin with the end in mind. So I think big picture first, like, what am I really wanting to accomplish here? And then I can kind of figure out all the details that go along with it. I'm not super detail oriented. I'm more big picture. But I kind of look at what I'm really wanting to see. And then I break down the kind of mile markers, the things that are going to get me to where I want to go. So, and then, so like wellness might be a category for me. Just my spiritual health is always on there, because that's something that I just prioritize. And I like to see on my calendar that I know, okay, I'm getting up, I'm spending this time here. And the little kind of outputs that help me to have spiritual growth. And some people that may feel legalistic. But what's really beautiful about having something like this, like a 12-week year, is when you start to create these habits and these disciplines, it turns into something that you didn't just do once or twice, but it's who you are. So it's not saying it's going to be on your calendar and agenda forever, but to develop those muscles, those confidence muscles, and just to get yourself in those habits, it might be on there for a little while. And what's really the goal of this is not because so that you can become so proficient or so efficient that you can then do more. The goal of productivity, one book that I read several years ago that is fantastic, is Free to Focus, and it's by Michael Hyatt. It is a great book on productivity. And then there's this quote in that book that I just absolutely love, because it's like, productivity should not lead to more productivity. Instead, it should lead to freedom. So he says productivity should lead to freedom, freedom to focus, freedom to be present, freedom to be spontaneous, and the freedom to do absolutely nothing. And I absolutely love that, because there's kind of this lie that tells you when when life slows down, then you're going to get all this in order. When life just gets a little bit less busy, then you're going to focus on that. And I am here to tell you, it does not slow down. It just speeds up. It's like the I Love Lucy episode, where the chocolates, the bonbons are coming down the deal, and they're kind of wrapping them and they're doing all the things, and it speeds up, and you aren't able to get ahead. And that's what happens if you're not focusing in on being able to identify what's important, where can your yeses be, where can your no's be. And again, they're not no's forever, they're just no's for right now. So for me, that might look like goals in my wellness, in my spiritual life, in my house. For me, that's kind of, there's ones on there about that I have a, quality time with each of my children every month, which I wish it was more than that. But on what's actually on my, in my little goal sheet is, have I gotten a kiddo by themselves, whether that's a coffee date or a lunch date, or we go on a walk, and I've had one-on-one conversation with each of my kiddos. And in this season of life, it's just, that's what it is, that we have. Eli and I have 2 date nights that we're going to church together. I've got things around my cell phone and cell phone usage, and things about my home being in order, nightly or weekly dinners with my whole family, those kinds of things that are on there, because those are goals. Those are the output that when I'm tracking that, I'm paying attention to that, my home is more peaceful. I have things in there about my business. And again, I'm focusing more on the output than the outcome. And then one thing that I actually do, which this may just really overrun your cheesiness factor, but out to the side, I have, why is that important to me? What feeling am I looking for? And so the one that, for spiritually well, I say, because I want to feel peaceful and joyful and have contentment. And when I'm focusing on some of those just key outputs, that's what happens. That's how I feel. Or things about my business, when I'm, being super consistent, I am making sure all these kind of different boxes are checked. That is kind of a sense of integrity for me, that I'm doing a high responsibility, that I'm stewarding, that I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm saying I'm going to do, which again helps to flex that confidence muscle. So those are kind of things that I do there. And one thing that I really appreciated that I heard years ago on a podcast, and his name was Ian Crone, and he talks a lot about the Enneagram, and he's a psychologist or psychiatrist or something, where he's talking to people all the time. And he said people will come in his office and they're talking about, maybe they're not in a good space and they're just not their best selves. And before he even starts to say, well, tell me what happened there, or, maybe they're saying that whatever's going on, he'll say, well, how are you feeling today? They're like, how am I feeling? I'm telling you, everything's shot to poop. And he's saying, okay, well, I'm going to ask you these 5 questions. And these could be questions that if you're kind of feeling like some of those feelings that I've talked about earlier, the overwhelmed and the uncertain and stuck or ineffective, all those things. Maybe you've got these questions somewhere where you can see them every day when you're brushing your teeth, or if you're someone that journals, or you're driving somewhere in the morning, and you can kind of think, just kind of check in with yourself and ask yourself. Because he said, when clients come into my office and they start talking about being in a bad space, I ask them 5 questions. What have you eaten today? What have you had to drink? Have you exercised? Have you spent time on technology? And what's your sleep pattern the last 3 nights? And again, he's not saying, well, what'd your mama say? And tell me what did happen at work. Why are you feeling so stressed? Like, he's not getting in all the details. He's first kind of doing a self-check, self-care, and saying, how you doing? Like, are you doing the things? And these are the kind of things that when they're on your tracker, that every day you're kind of asking yourself, am I putting good fuel in my tank? Am I putting like good food, and am I spending kind of time in quiet? Do I have time to rest? Am I spending time with my person? Are we having kind of a little, maybe you don't have time maybe you don't have space for a date night, but can you I remember years ago, a couple that I loved, they said they had tea time every day, and they got home from work and they each got a glass of tea. I don't know what made me just think of this. I haven't thought about this in years, but they each got a glass of tea and they sat on their porch swing, and their kids knew they could not come outside for the tea time until the tea time was over. And they said sometimes they might be mad at each other and they might just gulp the tea and be done. But some days they may let the tea, linger. They need a refill. But it would be just a time every day where they checked in with what's going on with life, and your day and all that. And that was kind of their time. Could you implement something like that? Could you have some kind of some tea time? But are there things that are going on in your life that are out of order? And when you have these kind of, this 12-week year has been so helpful for me in being able to identify, these are my priorities. So when someone asks you, hey, can you be the football homeroom mom, or whatever it is, like, and you're like, I can't do that right now because I have said these are the things that I'm going to focus on. Because then when you kind of look at your week and I love to time block. I'm going to give an example. I'll put a resource in the show notes that is like, what does it look like to time block? Because for me, on Sunday afternoons, I look at my whole week, and every hour of the week is on this calendar. And are there I'll even give you like an example of what mine might look like. Are there blocks on there that are just like family time? Or I think a lot of days mine will even say there's like an hour in there, and it's like, go eat lunch downstairs out of my space. And that might be where I Marco Polo my friends, or where I am. I might go on a walk just up and down my street. Like if I've already put Walker down and I'm just kind of up and down my street, or I'm just kind of vegging for a little while, or family time, or walking, or my spiritual, whatever that looks like. It's all on my calendar, because if I just have a to-do list, it does not get done. But if I put it on my calendar, this is when I'm going to do the things. Well, then stuff starts getting accomplished. And when you start tracking those things, you start seeing progress. And progress is the biggest human motivator, because when you see progress in a certain area, you have confidence to keep going, and you have confidence to say, oh, being committed to this, being disciplined in this has helped me to see success. So I'm going to be confident in that and try that again. That Ian Crone guy, his podcast is all about the Enneagram. And the Enneagram, I know people love different personality tests, and you may have a love-hate relationship with the attention around the Enneagram. The thing that's been helpful for me is it's not really a personality test. It's talking about your human motivators. And do I think it's, scripture or doctrine? I do not. Do I see fallacies in the Enneagram? I absolutely do. But it has helped me with some self-awareness, which is key. And it has helped me with some growth in some different areas. And I identify with the Enneagram 7, which that typically kind of the biggest motivator there is freedom. And so I've realized about myself that over the years, if I would think that I'm just better at winging it. I would just tell, I'm just kind of a fly by the seat of my pants, kind of sporadic over here. And I would do talks and presentations just fly by the seat of my pants and think, oh, that was great. It wasn't. And I have learned that some preparation and some boundaries and time blocking, and that has allowed for so much more focus, so much more productivity. My mom used to say I was perfectly delightful until she told me no. And I'm sure part of that's still true. And even with myself, telling myself no, whether it's, in, this is where you're going to be focused. And years ago, I was doing a panel at a leader kind of summit conference thing, and I again kind of identify with the Enneagram 7, and this other girl that was there, she is kind of she would identify with an Enneagram 3, who productivity is super important to Enneagram 3s. There's kind of like workhorses, love to work, or a lot of the people that identify with that personality type can be. And it was so interesting as we both were sharing different things about our work day. People were kind of asking, okay, can you kind of tell what like a typical work day or a work week looks like? And I found it fascinating that we both, me and this other lady, we both were working about the same amount of time. We were both working about 4 hours a day. And it was this kind of, obviously other things might come up, but as far as like the time that we had set aside and said, this is our focused time that we've set aside for these specific things, we both were working about 4 hours. And she was so proud of herself because she was like, look, I am working so hard. Look at everything that I'm accomplishing in this 4 hours. And I was thinking, I was so proud that after I get this 4 hours done, I have the whole day left to do whatever I want, because that was the motivator for me. And I just think that's so fascinating that whatever it is, it reminds me of the Dave Ramsey kind of system where he would tell people to do that envelope system. You remember that? And he would say, you need to, every dollar that you're going to spend needs to be accounted for, because I don't know if you've heard the quote that like time and money are just like water. So you can either pool it up and you can see these little resource pools, or if you don't, it's all just going to sink into the ground. So you can either tell your time and your money where to go, or it's just going to disappear and you're going to go, I don't even know where all that money went or all that time went. And so with the time blocking, what that allows for is, with Dave Ramsey, it would be like you have a category, an envelope that's just for eating out, and you would have one for shopping or for the water bill or for whatever it is. And so when you went out to eat, you didn't need to feel bad about getting pizza because you had money in the envelope just for that. And what this allows for, whether you're someone that works really hard or you love the freedom, you don't need to feel bad when it's time to be working, that you're taking time away from your family or something else you could be doing, because you've already decided, no. This is the time where I'm absolutely going to do that. Or when you're being leisurely and you're relaxing and you're playing on your phone, or you're going on a, just randomly take your kids to ice cream or whatever it is, you can feel like, oh no, I have this time here to be spontaneous, to do nothing, to do whatever it is, because you've been, a good steward of your time. And I just kind of want to leave you with the story of the talents. It's one of my most favorite stories in scripture. And just a reminder, it's these 3 guys, and this wealthy man comes to town, and he gives one guy a coin. He gives another guy 2 coins, and he gives a third guy 5 coins. And he says, I'm going to go away for a time. I'll be back, and I want to see what you did with your money. And so years and years go by. He comes back and he looks at the guy that had the 5 talents, and he said, what'd you do? And he said, I invested well, I did good things. And look, I have 5 more talents here. So I have 10. And the master looked at him and said, well done, good and faithful servant. And then he looks at the next guy that had the 2 talents, and he said, well, how'd you make out? And he said, I invested and I did good things. And so I earned another 2 talents. And look, now I have 4 talents. And the master said, way to go, good and faithful servant. And then the last one, who just had the 1 talent, he said, oh, I was scared. And I knew you were kind of like a shrewd or a harsh businessman or whatever it was he said. He said, I just hid it. But here you go. Here's your talent back. You can have it. And whatever. And the master looked at him and was like, you wicked, dirty, rotten scoundrel. You take your talent and you give it to the man that has 10. Like, what were you thinking? I could have invested it with the banks instead of this. This was, what were you thinking? And I just think that's so true. That's such a good lesson. That parable is such a good story to what we can be doing with our time and our resources. And you've been given time and responsibilities or children or things with your job. And what are you doing with them? Are you helping them to multiply? Are you looking at what you have and saying, okay, here's what I've got. It doesn't have to be anything super lavish when you're thinking about your 12-week year and you're thinking about the progress that you want to see for the next 90 days and you're kind of time blocking and all those things. It doesn't have to be all that. It's just actually showing yourself. It's creating that confidence muscle because you're saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to track this output. And then you're actually doing it. You're actually doing it. And you can, well done, good and faithful servant. You're going to be so proud of yourself when at the end, you're able to look at what you've done and say, I really did something there. I really did something. And then you might do something a little bigger for the next 90 days, for your next 12 weeks. You might say, okay, I saw progress there. I'm willing to kind of lift the lid, to kind of try a little harder. And I think that is, definitely how I've flexed confidence muscles, definitely how I have accomplished things. And what keeps me from going crazy with all of the shoulding, all of the, Rebekah, you should be doing this, you could be doing this, and all of the noise from the composite creatures that we create in our mind that tell us this is the standard of excellence. This is what you should be doing and what you should look like and should. So just shut up the shoulding by doing things like creating a 12-week year, looking at time blocking. I'm going to bring a resource to you that you can find in the show notes, and I hope it's helpful, and I hope that you will feel confident in what you really can accomplish because it is big, big, big things, friend. So I'll see you next week. You just finished another episode of Wide Open Spaces. My hope is always that you felt encouraged as you listened. And if you found this valuable, will you share it with a friend today? Tag me if you do. I always love seeing your favorite takeaways. I'm so glad you were here, and I'll see you back next week. Same time, same place. See you then.